Okay guys, so this is the third session on costing. So this is looking at material takeoffs and more detailed costing methods. This is when we don't have an overall cost to build up a wall, or the overall cost of a wall to be constructed, like we did in the previous costing method. So we only have costs for individual components to be built, or we want a more detailed elemental costing of exactly what's being costed for within a wall or different components in terms of material costs. So as you can see on my model, I've updated my external walls. So if I go into, for example, my external walls, there's a session on this on a separate tutorial how you change wall types and that. But if I go into edit type, you can see my new wall. So I've got from external, so I've got 100 mil brickwork with 100 mil insulation, with 100 mil of blockwork internally, which is a structural layer, and then 12.5 millimeters of internal plasterboard. So it's a basic wall type. It's not the best wall type, but it's a standard wall type. I've renamed it, so just rename. I've renamed it as external brick and block 100 mil insulation. As I said, you can do this individually. You do this on by looking at another tutorial that I'll upload. Again, the cost is the same, so all I did was change the concept wall 300 that we originally planned in to include the layers now, which we're gonna now individually cost out each of these layers into our schedule or detailed schedule for costing. So I click OK. So we're going to individually cost each of the materials. So to do this, it's slightly different than the previous one. If you go to View and then schedules. This time we're going to do material takeoffs. So it's not the scheduled quantities, so we're going to go material takeoffs. Again, for this one, we're going to go down to walls because that's where we're going to take the walls. That's a material takeoffs of the walls. It's fine, no change there. Click OK. This bit's slightly different, okay? So this bit is on your available fields. We have much more information now. So you'll see now we've got materials now. So we've got a whole element of materials added into that. So we can actually add in specific material properties into our schedule for calculation and for building up our schedule. So the kind of things that we need to know is obviously there's no need for families and types because we're not costing the family and type. We're actually going to a material level, so it's only really within the material ones that we're interested in. So what we need is obviously the name of the material. So we go into the material name, add that in. We also need the cost of that material. Again, it's meter square or meter volume or cost, depending on how spawns or how your QS calculates the cost of these items. And also we need the area of the materials being used. So area. So add the material area. Now here you can actually adjust. I don't think I've shown you this part yet. You can actually adjust the order of things that you want to see by clicking on these two little buttons to shift the order of the little fields in the schedule fields. So I want to obviously see name first. I probably want to see area second and cost third, which is fine. So that's up to you how you want to order them. Again, we need to create a custom field for calculate the total cost because this is only the cost. This will be the cost per meter squared or meter cubed, depending, on how the QS responds cost that element of material. So if you go to add calculate parameter, so if we name it as total cost or total wall cost, then maybe in brackets I'm going to put by material, and then if I go down to type, it's currency, and then the formula is the same. If you click on the three little dots, we're going to go material area and then asterisk for times multiplied by the material cost, and then divided by 1 meter, and then shift 6 for squared. Okay, so that will equalize the the formula in terms of different units in that. Click OK. So that's got that. If you click OK there, that should generate our cost, our schedule. So you'll see we've now got our schedule. It's quite a detailed schedule, and it doesn't make much sense just now because it's a bit all over the place. Again, we've got to tidy this up. So some of the things we're going to quickly do is, first of all, is obviously if you go back to sorting and grouping, make sure grand totals is ticked on, and formatting under total wall cost, make sure calculate totals is on as well. So that will now give us a starting point, just kind of tidy this up to make it more legible in terms of material costs. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is if you go back into sorting and grouping, so what we're going to do is categorize each of or organize each of the materials by type and then generate grand totals per type. So to do this, we're going to go sort by material name, and then add a blank line. We're also going to add a footer that's going to total each of those materials by the individual names. Click OK. So now you'll see if you go down, so all the brick is now combined into one. So this is all the brickwork within the project, all the brick walls. This is all the concrete walls. This is all the insulation in the walls, and this is all the plasterboard. And obviously the totals are all there. Obviously now we've got no figures attached to this. We're going to have to put them in, so we can do this in manually if we want. Ignore this bit here because I've not changed the internal walls yet, so that's the internal walls that refers to. That's just one big 100mm wall just now. It's not separated out into layers, but we're just focusing in on the external wall, which is brick and block with insulation and plasterboard. So as before, you can actually go in and change any of these individually within here. So if I go in here and say insulation, for example, cost for a rigid insulation, it cost £65 per meter squared. Click enter, and that will obviously now update all that insulation and give us a grand total. But where does this actually hide within the actual Revit model? So if we go back into ground floor, or that, if I click on the actual wall and I go to edit type, now if you click on edit, you will see all the different components of those of the different wall types. Okay, so if I go into, for example, a brick wall there, brick common, extend that. If you go to identity, this is where now this will hide. So this is where the elemental cost for individual materials hide. So whereas before, if I just quickly go back to where we were in the previous step, if I go back to edit type, when we used to do the costing for the overall wall as constructed, that used to be housed within the identity data for the overall wall, which is within the family itself. But for the individual materials, it's within the structure and then within the material itself. So if I go to brick, and then if I assign a cost for brick, again, you can assign the same kind of information. You can assign manufacturer, model number, URL to the actual specification, to the actual manufacturer's website, whatever you want. You can actually individually put the data into individual materials if that's the level of material or level of detail that you need in your model. So if I say a brick wall costs, say off the top of my head, £120 per meter squared, click OK. Again, I can go and do the other layers. So if I do block work, again, block, there's a search up there, block, masonry block units. Again, I can go into here and say that costs about £85 per meter squared. Again, if I go here, and if I, yeah, that saves. So if I go into here and if I say plasterboard, I've done plasterboard, I will go into insulation. I go to rigid insulation. Actually, I've done that one, so as plasterboard I've not done. Sorry. So plasterboard, if I say that costs per meter squared to be plastered, to put on and plastered, if I say that's £150 per meter squared, because it's quite a labour intensive process in that. If I click OK there, and that's now costed all the elements of that wall. So I've costed the brick, the insulation, the block work, and the plasterboard in terms of supply and fit cost as per what spawns or wherever the QS is getting information from. That's the as per built cost of those materials put into the model now. So if I click OK now, OK. If I go back to my schedules, if I go to material wall takeoff, now you'll see all the data is included within that within the spreadsheet now. So you've got all the brickwork with a cost attached to it, and then the total cost of that wall by material cost. So that totals all them up. For just the brickwork, it cost 30,500 approximately. So this is how QS might use this type of data to get more detailed costings from subcontractors and that kind of stuff, to kind of understand where the costings are going in terms of labor and in terms of materials, that kind of stuff. So again, all these are done, and then we've got the grand total as well of all the wall. As I say, we've not done this wall, the internal walls, but if we did do that, we would have plasterboard, we would have the structural framing for the plasterboard for the internal walls, and then obviously the 2 layers of plasterboard would be calculated as well. So that would have been up there as well. So the total is a realistic figure now. Obviously, I've just used generic figure off the top of my head. You can use spawns based, which is in classrooms, to get a bit more accurate figures into your models if that's what you want to do. Okay, so that's essentially how we calculate material takeoffs for much more detailed material kind of calculations for costings and that kind of stuff. Okay, so we've covered 3 different types. So we've covered the basic, which is the most simplest, which would have been the component costing. Then we looked at system family costings based on meter square rates for a constructed wall, and now we're looking at material takeoffs for individual components of materials, which is in the most detailed way. So with that information, you can get, for small projects, you can actually work out rough figure costings based on this kind of method. As I said, there is more detailed tools out there, more dedicated BIM often software out there. Costex being the most used one, I think, just now, that has the database attached to it with all the spawns costings within it. If you ever have a chance to speak to a QS to have a look at them, that's worth a look at, because they've obviously got all the spawns embedded within that Costex for every project that they do. So they've got their own databases made up, ready to go, and they can just plug that into a Revit model, and it will recognize all the materials in that model and generate a cost pretty quickly, I would think, if the model's been done right in the first place. So yeah, that's a level of how complete and correct and efficient costing can be now using Revit.